Ayrton Senna, May 1st, 1994. Lap 7 of the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. Ayrton Senna was leading the race in his Williams FW16, traveling at approximately 190 miles per hour as he approached the Tamburello corner, a fast left-hand curve that was one of the quickest sections of the circuit. Without warning, Senna's car went straight on instead of following the curve. He was traveling at around 192 miles per hour when he lost control. He hit the brakes hard, but the car still slammed into the concrete barrier at 131 miles per hour. The impact was devastating. The front of the Williams shattered, and a piece of the car's suspension pierced through Senna's helmet, causing fatal head injuries. F1's chief medical officer, Professor Sid Watkins, was on the scene within seconds. He found Senna unresponsive with severe head trauma. A piece of the suspension had ruptured Senna's temporal artery, causing massive blood loss and brain damage. An emergency tracheotomy was performed trackside, and Senna was airlifted to Maggiore Hospital in Bologna. His heart stopped 10 minutes after arriving at the hospital. He was placed on life support, but when his heart stopped a second time at 6:37 p.m., he was pronounced dead at 6:40 p.m. He was 34 years old. The crash investigation later revealed that Senna's steering column had failed. The column had been modified to adjust Senna's seating position, but the welding was flawed and had developed fatigue cracks. Roland Ratzenberger. One day before Senna's fatal crash, on April 30th, 1994, Austrian driver Roland Ratzenberger was killed during qualifying for the same San Marino Grand Prix. He was 33 years old and in only his third Formula One race weekend, driving for the small Simtek team. Ratzenberger was battling for the 26th and final grid position. During a previous lap, he had run over a curb at the Acqua Minerali section, damaging his front wing. He didn't return to the pits to have it checked. Instead, he pushed on for another fast lap, hoping to secure his spot on the grid. As he approached the Villeneuve corner at approximately 195 miles per hour, the damaged front wing completely detached from his car. With no front downforce, the Simtek became uncontrollable. The car went straight on and slammed into the concrete wall at full speed. The impact was catastrophic. The car disintegrated on impact. Ratzenberger was still strapped in his seat, but his helmet had come off. He was thrown into the catch fencing along the track edge. Fellow drivers John Watson and Derek Warwick rushed to the scene and pulled him from the wreckage. Medical personnel arrived within 35 seconds, but Ratzenberger wasn't breathing, though his pulse continued. He was intubated and ventilated before being transferred to the Circuit Medical Center, then airlifted to University St. Raphael Hospital. Doctors found he had suffered 3 individually fatal injuries: a basilar skull fracture, blunt trauma from the front left tire penetrating the survival cell, and a ruptured aorta. He was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. Ratzenberger's death was the first Formula One fatality during a race weekend since Riccardo Paletti was killed at the 1982 Canadian Grand Prix, ending a 12-year period without a death during an F1 event. Ayrton Senna witnessed the accident and rushed to the crash site. He was reportedly devastated, collapsing in tears in his motorhome afterward. The next day, Senna would lose his own life on the same circuit. Jules Bianchi, October 5th, 2014, the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. Heavy rain had made track conditions treacherous throughout the race. On lap 42, Adrian Sutil had spun off the track at the Dunlop curve, and a recovery vehicle was on the circuit to remove his car. Jules Bianchi, driving for Marussia, came through the same corner on lap 43. Yellow flags were waving, indicating danger ahead, but the 25-year-old French driver was traveling too fast for the conditions. He lost control on the wet track and his car aquaplaned straight off the circuit. Instead of hitting a barrier, Bianchi's car slammed directly into the recovery crane that was still on the track, removing Sutil's vehicle. The impact occurred at high speed. The collision destroyed his car's roll bar, and the vehicle slid underneath the crane, crushing the cockpit area where Bianchi sat. The forces involved were enormous. Bianchi was knocked unconscious instantly from the severe impact to his head. The open cockpit design meant his helmet took the full force of striking the crane. Safety crews rushed to extract him from the wreckage, but the weather conditions prevented him from being airlifted to the hospital immediately. He was eventually transported to Maggiore Hospital in Bologna, where he underwent emergency surgery for severe head injuries. The diagnosis was diffuse axonal injury, a type of traumatic brain damage. Bianchi fell into a coma and never regained consciousness. He remained in the hospital for 9 months while doctors worked to save him, but his condition never improved. On July 17th, 2015, Jules Bianchi died from his injuries. He was the first Formula One driver to die from injuries sustained during a World Championship event since Ayrton Senna in 1994. Gilles Villeneuve, May 8, 1982, the final qualifying session for the Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder. Canadian driver Gilles Villeneuve was pushing hard in his Ferrari, trying to beat his teammate Didier Pironi's time. The two had fallen out bitterly 2 weeks earlier at the San Marino Grand Prix when Pironi had ignored team orders and stolen what should have been Villeneuve's victory. Villeneuve was using his final set of qualifying tires. With 8 minutes remaining in the session, he came over a rise after the first chicane and encountered Jochen Mass in a march traveling much more slowly through a left-hand bend called Butte. Mass saw Villeneuve approaching at high speed and moved to the right to let him pass on the racing line. At exactly the same moment, Villeneuve also moved right to overtake Mass. The timing was catastrophic. The Ferrari hit the back of the march at a speed estimated between 120 and 140 miles per hour. The impact launched Villeneuve's car into the air. The Ferrari was airborne for over 100 meters before nosediving into the ground and somersaulting along the edge of the track, disintegrating as it tumbled. Villeneuve was still strapped to his seat, but his helmet had been ripped off. He was thrown another 50 meters from the wreckage into the catch fencing at the Terlemenbacht corner. Several drivers, including Watson and Warwick, stopped immediately and rushed to help. The first doctor arrived within 35 seconds. Villeneuve was not breathing, though his pulse continued. He was intubated and ventilated before being transferred to the Circuit Medical Center, then helicoptered to University St. Raphael Hospital in Leuven. Doctors diagnosed a fatal fracture of the neck. Villeneuve was kept on life support while his wife, Joanne, traveled from Monaco to the hospital. He died at 9:12 that evening with his wife by his side. He was 32 years old. The cause of the accident was officially attributed to driver error on Villeneuve's part, though many believe the incident was simply a tragic miscommunication between two drivers in a split-second situation. Niki Lauda, August 1st, 1976, the German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. The track was notoriously dangerous and the weekend weather looked threatening. Niki Lauda, driving for Ferrari, had called for the race to be cancelled due to safety concerns. He asked his fellow drivers to vote on whether to proceed. By just one vote, the majority decided the race should go ahead. It was a decision that nearly cost Lauda his life. On the second lap of the race, Lauda was traveling through a left kink on a wet section of track when his Ferrari suddenly snapped to the right. He went head-on into a barrier at high speed. The car bounced off the wall and back onto the track, directly into the path of two other cars. Both cars struck Lauda's Ferrari. The impacts, combined with ruptured fuel lines, caused the car to burst into flames. Lauda was trapped inside the burning wreckage, unable to escape on his own. Fellow drivers Guy Edwards, Harold Ertl, Arturo Merzario, and Brett Lunger rushed to the scene. They pulled Lauda from the flames, but he had already suffered devastating injuries. His face was severely burned, and he had inhaled toxic fumes that damaged his lungs. Lauda was airlifted to a hospital where doctors gave him the last rites, believing he would not survive. The burns to his face were so severe that they caused permanent scarring. He had also suffered serious lung damage from inhaling superheated air and toxic gases. Against all medical expectations, Lauda not only survived but began a remarkable recovery. Just 6 weeks after the accident, he returned to racing at the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. His head was still bandaged and he was in significant pain, but he refused to give up his championship fight. Romain Grosjean, November 29th, 2020, the first lap of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Romain Grosjean, driving for Haas, was running in the midfield pack when contact occurred with Daniil Kvyat's car. The collision sent Grosjean's car veering sharply to the left at 137 miles per hour. What happened next shocked the world. Grosjean's car speared off the track and hit an Armco barrier at 119 miles per hour. The impact registered 67 Gs of force. The car didn't just crash into the barrier, it pierced straight through it. The Haas split in two on impact. The rear half stayed on the track side of the barrier. The front half, containing the cockpit with Grosjean still inside, went completely through the barrier and erupted into a massive fireball. Flames engulfed the cockpit area immediately. Everyone watching assumed the worst. A car splitting in half and bursting into flames was a nightmare scenario. The fire was so intense and the crash so violent that survival seemed impossible. The broadcast cameras captured the entire horrific scene. Then, 28 seconds after impact, something miraculous appeared on screen. Through the flames emerged Romain Grosjean. He pulled himself out of the burning wreckage and hauled himself over the barrier, aided by FIA medical car driver Alan van der Merwe and Dr. Ian Roberts, who had rushed to the scene within seconds. Grosjean had suffered burns to his hands and ankles, but he was alive and conscious. He later said that during those 28 seconds trapped in the flames, he thought about his children and remembered Niki Lauda's 1976 crash. That thought gave him the determination to escape. The accident investigation revealed several factors that saved Grosjean's life. The halo device, the protective frame around the cockpit that was introduced after Jules Bianchi's death, prevented the barrier from striking Grosjean's head. The flame-resistant racing suit gave him crucial seconds of protection, and the survival cell of the car, though split from the rest of the vehicle, remained intact around him. Without the safety improvements implemented after previous tragedies, particularly the halo device, Grosjean almost certainly would have died. And if you found this breakdown interesting, please subscribe for more.